Hello there. Hello, welcome again to the Spirit of Watercolor. Linda here, and I'm very happy to see you again. And we're continuing our journey together with watercolor, and we've been focusing this three-part little series on mixing colors and of your watercolors. And the introduction was basically the first part where we talked about the kinds of tubes you can buy, and so please check that video out. It may be linked to this. I hope I have that linked so that you can see these different parts together and get the most success out of watercolor paintings, get the most exciting, beautiful, vibrant colors. And you can buy as little or many tubes as I mentioned there, from 3 tubes on to, infinity, right? And yet, you don't need that many, and you can still get gorgeous, luminous, vibrant colors. And we are going to talk about mixing today. Yes, mixing colors. There are actually 2 ways to do that, and I'm going to show you how to do each in 2 short demonstrations on this video. The first way is, as everybody knows, you have your paints and you have your palette. One moment, please. So I've got my palette, I've got my paint, brushes, okay? And the thing is that, we talk about mixing the colors. So you have your paint palette and you have your paints, and then you dip in the water and you mix your take these out, draw from the paint pockets out onto your palette. And then you mix, say, yellow and red or whatever colors that you want to mix. And we're going to talk about that. That's the first way, because you don't want to lose the richness and the luminosity, right? Right. Okay. But over mixing or mixing too many colors, those kinds of things we'll take a look at. Okay. Now there's another way of mixing colors, okay? And it's different. It's really what's called glazing. And you may have heard this term before. And glazing is when you glaze one color onto the paper and it dries. And then you will glaze another onto the paper over top of that after that's dry. And there's a method to this where you can get the most success, the most beautiful transparencies on your paper, where you see, like, if you, for instance, you have green, so you would lay the blue down, and we'll talk about which color first and how you know that, and the next color, yellow, over it, and you will actually see that it becomes green, but it's sort of like you're seeing one color through the other, because of course these are transparent, right? It's very wonderful technique to know and to learn. And it's just another way of mixing your colors. Okay, now I'm gonna have to research a little of that myself. I'm not sure if I've ever mixed more than 2 colors or glazed 2 colors, but it's very possible you can do that as well. So I'm gonna look into that and get back to you on that one. But the other kind of mixing that I wanna lightly tap into, and actually maybe I'll add that to this video or do a separate one about it in more depth, is something called variegation or variegated washes. And that has to do with the watercolors on the paper, where they're just kind of blending together. Just, okay, you paint a little paint on one and then on the paper, and then you paint another one, and they merge, okay, and they blend and mix, and maybe some of it doesn't mix, and it's a very beautiful mixing method as well. Okay, so there you go. The main ones are 2. There are 2, but there is also something called variegated wash, which is a kind of a mixing. It's a little different. So we'll touch lightly on that, and then maybe that'll be another more isolated video all in itself. Okay, because some of these things are just so cool to know about, and if you don't know about them, your repertoire of ways to create beautiful things with watercolor would be smaller. And so I want to touch on some of those things, even though some of these you may not use that often, or if you really love them, you may really grow to use them a lot in your work. I love wet on wet, so I do that predominantly in my work. And I do like variegated washes, and I'm minimal with, say, masking fluid, although I do use it. I don't use it a lot. So you'll find out as you move through your journey with this beautiful medium that, you know, there's certain things that really work for you, and some that, you know, occasionally do. Some you might not like at all, and that's okay too, you know. So let's stay tuned. Let's go to the next part of the video, and we'll start with the blending on the palette, okay? And then mixing your colors there and then applying them to the paper. So stay tuned. Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, so here we are in the studio, and we're talking mixing the colors from our palette, right? Okay, so let's just kind of do a quick demo. This is fairly easy for everybody, I am sure. So I'm going to just basically pick a favorite brush, and I like my big old, it's not huge, it's my medium large, round with a point. And then, as you know, and you probably, this is pretty logical, but we're going to pull paint from our palette, put it on our, or from our pan, excuse me, mix it, put it on our palette. Then we're going to blend a color I've pulled here, some blue, and I'm going to create some kind of an interesting variations, okay? So I can make it sort of a reddish purple, or I can bring in more blue and have a more bluish purple, right? So I'm just blending on the palette. That is pretty straightforward, isn't it? Okay, and then we will put that onto our paper. A little behind here today. And, you know, then you will start to apply, you know, to your painting, you know, the colors that you want here. And you should make sure your brush is good and loaded. And then start to bring those mixed colors in. And there you are. It's from your palette. Okay, that's the first mixing colors. We can start to create our lovely painting, whatever it's going to be. This is just, you know, not a planned out painting, but just to talk about mixing the colors, okay? And then, you know, we have varying degrees of value, depending how much paint, but it's all coming from a mixed palette. Okay, that's the first one, simple and easy. We're going to move from this one to where we do what I call the, well, I'm not the only one, but the graduated wash. Okay, I'm sorry, that's not it. The glazing paints. So look at my flat here. Flat brush, where did you go? Oh, there we are. I don't know why I didn't see that. Okay, so glazing is another story. Instead of mixing here on my palette, I'm going to just be pulling straight from a color, getting a pure color. That's my Indanthrone blue, one of my favorite colors. Okay, then we're going to take that and, well, let's just try it in another area of the paper here. How about over, make sure it's wet enough. Over here, and I'm just going to glaze in some strong color. Okay. And you can see that I'm just laying it in. I'm pretty quick when I do stuff because I like it to stay nice and fresh. Okay. And I hope you're getting, you know, and then that's going to dry. Okay. And I'm just doing a flat wash all the way down here. And then once this dries, right, that's when I will come in, say, with my red or my pink or my yellow or whatever it is I want. Those are just wet now. It's kind of wet on dry, becoming sort of to the wet on wet. But that has to completely dry, that blue. I can do some sky, right? Okay. With that color too. And I can later, once the sky dries and the clouds and whatnot, I can bring in a colors over and into that as well. Okay, so that is just glazing pure color, letting it set up and dry, and then we can come back later and we can look at what we have, and we can decide where we want to lay in color. So I'm going to come back after this dries and we'll show you glazing over that that pure indanthrone blue. I'm going to bring in some of the reflections from the sun and the sky, maybe some reflection from that mountain above, but it's going to be layered over the paint. Now some paints are much more staining, and that's the ones I want to use as the first glaze, because they will stain the paper. In other words, they will soak into the paper, and then they will hold. Okay, I'm not smiling, right? And should be more cheerful when I'm painting today. And they need to stay on the paper, and they won't budge or move. The more staining they are, the least they will do that, the less they will do that. And then you can put other colors over that are not quite so staining, the yellows and the yellow reds and things like that often can be moved and lifted, although that isn't necessarily true across the board. Some watercolor paints are going to some watercolor paints are going to be maybe colors that I've mentioned, yellow and red, and they might stain more than other yellows and reds. And it really doesn't matter, I don't think, how much the paint lifts on the second glaze over top of the first glaze, but what's really good is the transparencies. I tend to use more transparent paints on the top glaze because, you know, as you know, your paints, they can be more transparent to almost going toward opaque and not being able to see through them. This is where transparent watercolors have their glory. When you glaze them over top of the other colors, the transparentness of it allows you to see through, say, the yellow, transparent yellow that you might have used, into the blue, and then you see a green, but it's kind of a more beautiful effect. I'll show you that after this dries. We'll come back. Okay. Thanks. I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so here we are. We're back with our painting that has dried. And we had a little sort of a mountain effect. Move my palette over. And we have the blue, which is a very staining color. And we're going to glaze over, and that's how we're mixing on the paper. So we're going to take our brush. Let me move my chair over a little bit and grab a good brush for glazing. I could use a big round or a big flat brush for that. And what I'm thinking is that sometimes my flat brush is the best. I'm going to actually put on my glasses and get my brush good and wet, and then the color that I used here, I mixed the indanthrone blue and a red that I have here, so I'm just going to use that red mostly, because when I glaze it over that blue, I should get something similar to that purple of those mountains there. Okay, so you know, I'm just going to try to mimic in reflection backwards here the mountain shape, like so. Okay. Again, I'm not trying to be perfect here. I'm just trying to show you how, you know, that I can do, this is a glazing technique, and this is a way of mixing on the paper. And that will look very similar, you know, to the what I have over here. Okay, all right. Let me just make sure I'm not getting too much pink in my sky unless I want it there. There we go. Smooth that out or lift it out. There's a way of lifting the paint out, by the way, by just taking a wet clear brush and lifting it out or smoothing it out. Okay, so now I have sort of a reflection, and it's going to look really similar. But I have just taken that indanthrone pure blue and I've glazed that color over, okay? Now, if I want to bring a little different colors into my sky, I can do that. Let's see. Maybe there's going to be a little bit of that pink in the sky as well. as you can see, I've got some blue there, so there must, you know, blue and white for some cloud effects. But maybe I want to add a little bit of that pink into my sky. So I'm going to just kind of wet that paper and bring that red in again, okay? And it's going to create, again, I'm mixing and making a purple, but it's just called glazing, okay? Putting this color over that color. And we're just getting the two colors to blend, and we're getting a purpley blue here. And it should be kind of pretty, okay? Yeah. All right. Anyway, that's glazing in a nutshell. Pretty simple, right? All right, okay, so now I'm just going to take my paper towel, which I always tell you this is called lifting. It's not called fixing my mistakes, because that's a negative way of talking, right? So I'm just lifting out any extra color that I don't want, but I've got some pink in my sky here, and keeping a soft edge by lifting out, and I've got the glazed color there, okay? That's pretty simple. Now, how do I know which paints are staining, right, and which are not? We have another video where we went through this. I'm going to show you this. This is my tablet of which, when I wrote here, staining colors, what did I write? Or non-staining. Staining or non-staining. There you go. That's pretty easy to... And then I swatched colors out of my palette, okay? Right out of this palette here, okay? And then after they dry, I go back and I can take either a brush or a paper towel. I tend to like to use a paper towel. And I will, you know, get the towel damp, not soaked, but damp. And then you can either rub this or whatnot, you know, like I can lift or rub and see, does that color come out? Come out. Yes, see? It does, okay? That is a non-staining color. Then I would take my pen and I will write under that non-staining, okay? These blues are gonna tend, well, it depends on the blue. I use a manganese blue hue, which I know it's not staining, and it lifts, so I use it when I want that. But when I want a staining color, I've got my phthalo blue, which is very staining, my indanthrone blue, and I will label those. I guess I didn't get too far with this. I need to get back to work on this. I struggle with these tedious little things, but they really pay off, don't they? Because they really pay off because, you know, you get you'll write the color down, and then you'll write whether it's staining or non-staining. So until you get that where you know your palette, and you know, like I know certain colors are staining, and I know certain ones of mine are not. I can't tell you about yours because you may not have the exact same colors that I do, right? So, okay, so that's our two techniques there. And then we have variegated washes, which I can tell you briefly about, show you briefly here. But I think what I'd rather do is for us to take another video. It'll be a short video where we segue from this one over to variegated washes, which is two colors kind of merging on the paper. Really cool stuff, really cool effects. Why don't we save that for the next one? Because these get too long, don't they? So I really hope you are enjoying learning about watercolors with me. And how they work, knowing a little bit more about how your paints work, the qualities, characteristics of the paints themselves will allow you so much more success in your work, so much more understanding of how they work and how to apply them, so you don't overmix and get dull colors, things like that, which is something else I really want us to talk about. So stay tuned. Next video, search for variegated washes, and we'll play with that. It's just a sort of a little added fun thing to know about and to add excitement to your work. And then I do want to talk about mixing more, and how when you mix your colors, you get, you know, if you mix the right amounts and, you know, not too many, and, you know, just there's a lot of things to learn so that you keep the colors vibrant, intense, beautiful, luminous, and people just want to look and look, and you want to look and look and enjoy your work, right? Yay. Okay, so thanks so much for watching again. If you like this video, you know what to do. Click there, click here, unsubscribe, and keep on watching. Keep joining me. Let's keep on enjoying the joy of watercolor. It keeps our lives balanced and with joy. Thank you for watching. See you again soon. Bye.